In April and May 1970, the rapidly growing Soviet Navy conducted history's largest peacetime fleet exercise. Labeled Ocean 70, the event included 84 surface warships, 80-some submarines, including 15 nuclear-powered and 45 naval auxiliary and intelligence collection ships, plus several hundred aircraft. Also participating in the multi-ocean exercise were hundreds of naval and land-based strategic aircraft simulating strikes against warships in the North Atlantic and North Pacific. These strikes, conducted thousands of miles apart, were coordinated to within a few minutes of each other, demonstrating effective command and control by naval headquarters in Moscow. Something happened that even the then Soviet authorities could not explain, and many details were kept secret. However, today you will learn a very interesting account of an incident that unfolded during these exercises in the Atlantic Ocean, close to Cuba. As you may recall, Cuba and the Soviet Union were very close allies, and Soviet naval forces frequently used Cuban ports. In particular, the temporary base of the Soviet naval forces was the port of Cienfuegos. On May 4, 1970, when the exercises were nearing their end, a submarine, the K-162, sent a message stating that 3 unidentified objects were rapidly approaching the vessel on the radar. This information was received by Boris Petrov, the deputy commander of the 5th Operational Squadron at that time. Petrov immediately went into a state of alarm and ordered all naval vessels to be put on high alert. He believed that this could be an American diversion operation. 3 minutes later, the captain of the submarine, Anatoly Sorokin, transmitted new information. According to him, the number of objects had increased to 10, and they were stationary at a distance of 80 meters from the submarine. Petrov stated that they were likely whales. However, the submarine's deputy commander disagreed and repeated that these objects closed the submarine very quickly. Petrov fell into a state of panic. One of the torpedo specialists, Roman Ermakov, reported, "There was complete silence on board. The entire crew was in a state of shock. Suddenly, the submarine began to maneuver on its own and descend even further into the water. When it went 200 meters deeper, it unexpectedly stopped." Sorokin then reported that the submarine had lost its steering capability and was descending under its own power, then coming to a halt by itself. On the radar, 10 unidentified objects were still visible. Visually, the captain could not yet discern what these objects looked like. Additionally, none of them appeared on the ship's illuminator. Meanwhile, contact with the commanders was lost. Petrov ordered another submarine, located 15 kilometers away, to proceed toward the K-162, as their communication had been lost. At that moment, Sorokin looked through the vessel's illuminator and saw an oval, unidentified, luminous object emitting a powerful, bright light. In his panic, Sorokin attempted to send a message to Petrov. Unexpectedly, the K-162 again began an autonomous descent, going even deeper. It was clear that the submarine had completely lost control. The K-162 descended another 70 meters and stopped, and a few minutes later, it started ascending on its own. When the submarine had fully returned to a shallower depth, communication with the command center was restored. An irate Petrov demanded that Sorokin relay all the necessary information. Sorokin then provided a detailed account. He said that through the illuminator, he saw a large oval object that shone very intensely and was extremely close to the K-162. Also, the deputy commander of the 5th Squadron, Vladimir Kruglialkov, received this information. At that time, Kruglialkov was in Havana. Kruglialkov declared that a high state of readiness had been achieved. All combat vessels in the Atlantic Ocean had been placed on full combat alert. Kruglialkov and other high-ranking captains noted that they had previously recorded strange phenomena on the radar, but such an incident had never occurred before. They also saw a couple of unidentified objects, the nature of which they could not determine, but nothing like this incident that happened with the K-162 had ever been observed in the history of the Soviet fleet. In short, on May 10th, the high alert was called off. Sergei Groshkov, the deputy commander of the Soviet Navy, then issued an order that on May 11th, from the port of Cienfuegos, the Soviet task forces should begin to depart gradually, and these forces were to be later distributed to their places in Atlantic Ocean. Now, an equally intriguing episode begins. Also, the port of Cienfuegos was vacated by the tanker Boris Chilikin, which was accompanied by a small-size military patrol boat. When the tanker passed the island of Turks and Caicos, suddenly, on the tanker radar, a rapidly approaching object appeared under the water, which also quickly disappeared from the radar. The object was moving extremely fast at 162 knots, approximately 300 kilometers per hour, which was an impressively high speed. Moreover, such a speed had never before been encountered under the water, especially in the 1970s. The tanker's captain was Vitaly Korchinski. Korchinski attempted to contact the command center, but there were communication difficulties. The other Soviet Navy forces were widely separated from one another. The tanker, Boris Chilikin, was heading to Africa, Guinea, to unload fuel. As soon as communication with the higher command was restored, the tanker's captain managed to establish that a strange object had been detected on the radar, a mysterious object that rapidly approached them and then suddenly vanished. Kryglialkov then issued an order instructing the task force's captain to take appropriate action given the situation. In addition, a military patrol boat came into a state of readiness. At 4:50, the object reappeared on the radar, swimming toward the tanker and the accompanying military boat. Visually, the object looked like an amphibious helicopter that moved underwater too fast. This is the picture you see now. And below, you see an artifact from Egypt. Write in the comments what it is. I'd be interested to hear your opinion about it. The task force's captain maintained constant contact with the command center and relayed the situation directly. Suddenly, Korchinski reported that the patrol boat that was escorting them had suddenly turned and started to descend underwater. The military boat began to sink and sank, but the crew jumped into the water from the boat, which numbered 7. They began swimming toward the tanker in order to board it. However, all 7 military sailors were suddenly lost. The tanker captain fell completely into shock. He could not understand what had just occurred. Then, out of the depths, a mysterious object emerged, rapidly ascended into the air, and disappeared. Additionally, a second object, followed by a third, appeared. Communication was once again disrupted, and the crew was unable to re-establish contact with the command center. The captain did not stop the tanker and continued its course toward Guinea. The patrol boat and all 7 sailors were lost in the depths of the ocean. During the night, these unidentified objects occasionally ascended from the depths toward the sky, while some objects from the sky descended into the ocean. However, these objects no longer posed a threat to the tanker crew. The photographs you see are from Soviet secret archives. These are precisely the photos of the unidentified objects. 14 days later, when the tanker was nearing Guinea, a Soviet military vessel was dispatched, which had Vladimir Kryglialkov on board. Captain Korchinski was urgently called in for questioning about this incident. Korchinski provided Kryglialkov with every detail. Kryglialkov then contacted the deputy commander of the Soviet Navy, Groshkov, and explained the situation, demanding that a rescue vessel be dispatched from Havana to search for the missing military personnel. However, Groshkov refused, explaining that the same threat might also endanger the crew of the rescue vessel. 7 sailors and a patrol boat remain at the bottom of the ocean, or